Morning, everyone. Great to see you. Hope you're doing well. Good morning to all of you joining us online today. Great to see you as well, and those listening also on the podcast. Straight into the word this morning from John chapter 13, starting at verse 1. It'll be up on the screen behind me. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he'd come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize what I'm doing, but later on you will understand." "No," said Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." "Then, Lord," Simon Peter replied, "not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Title of the message today is this: Becoming More Human. How to move from survival to service. We live in a world that is obsessed with survival. You might be feeling this coming into Christmas time. The goal for you is to get to the end of the year alive. And if that's you, anthropologists tell us that this is our most innate and deepest human instinct, to survive. And yet with Jesus, we see something else. First graph up on the screen today. I made mention a few weeks ago of the most recent census data that told us that Christianity in Australia, or religious affiliation, is on the decline. You can see that there with the rise of no religion. There are key findings there. This is just taking screenshots directly off the Australian census data. Some of you would have been shocked to realize at the time that I felt that I wasn't so alarmed about this kind of stats. As a pastor of a church, you didn't see me running around the stage yelling at you that the sky was going to fall in. And so at one level, I'm not worried. And then I'm going to show you with the next couple of graphs why in context, this is actually a really, really big problem. This is also, if you lay these two graphs side by side, this is the decline in volunteerism that's happening around the world as well. So not only is Christianity declining, in context, affiliation with any sort of community group is also on decline. So people are volunteering less, people are serving less, people are involved in community groups even less. People aren't connecting in any form of activity that is outside of their immediate family. That is happening more and more. You can see that there. This is obviously American. They call them college graduates, with the biggest decline. Interesting quote at the bottom that said that people who were connected to some kind of service outside of their family throughout the COVID period fared much better than those who did not volunteer. That it seemed to decrease those feelings of isolation, decrease those feelings of separation that each of us felt throughout that period of time. Thirdly and finally, one last graph, because I know that you all love graphs. It's good for the visual learners here. Look at the rise of isolation and loneliness that is happening in our world. I've listed that, and I've screenshot the actual study that this one came from, but you can see what is happening there. Feeling left out, feeling lonely, and something about connection to the little screens that we all have in front of us and the amount of information that is coming from them. My friends, individualism is killing us. It is killing us. Disconnection from any form of bigger story is having huge life consequences around our world. We are living in a society that is splintering on splintering. It's like you split a block of wood and then you split it again and again and again and again and again. And then we're getting right down to the most minute details and we're still splitting them up. Until now, I don't just have one social media account, but I've got many for all of my different personalities, all of my different, all the different things that I've got going on in my life because I'm so interesting. We are in an attention economy. Time is no longer the most valuable resource. Money is no longer the most valuable resource. It is now your attention. And every single company, every single person is trying to vie for your eyeballs. And this individualism is killing us because as Christianity in Australia, religious affiliation decreases, affiliation and serving in any form of community group continues to decrease. Loneliness, isolation, mental health challenges are on the increase. And my friends, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to explain to us what is going on. How did we get here? For enjoying this little study, then I'd like to just continue for a couple more minutes, if that's okay. Here's how we got here, a brief and very incomplete history. There were times in human history where we were dependent on biology, right? You need the right season to be able to grow the right crops. You need the right body to be able to produce a human being. You need the right kind of environment around you to be able to eat, to be sustained, to be able to have these kinds of things. And so if you get bad weather and the crop is ruined, guess what? The crop is ruined. You're dependent on something external. Other times in human history where we've been religio-politically dependent. What does that mean? Remember when Augustine came along and the church and the state all combined and you lived under, if you were a peasant or a citizen of that, you lived underneath the realm and the rule of the leader. The leader was to be obeyed, the leader was to be served, and they even wielded that power in the name of God. You might think that's terrible, that's horrible. Yeah, except that you were able to live underneath something and it wasn't all on you. We were economically dependent. What was going on in our economy around the world we were very dependent on that, and it created a sense of external reality, a sense of transcendence, a sense of living underneath and inside of something. What is happening now? Technology is a great disruptor, always has been. It is a blessing and a curse. Next slide, please. With the blessing and the curse of technology, we now no longer need seasons to be able to produce our food. We can put them inside a factory, chuck a whole bunch of lights on them, irrigate them, and you can have tomatoes 24/7, 7 days a week, no rain, doesn't matter. We've all got phones now where we don't need the political system because I'm an expert and I've got a voice. And I'm going to amplify my voice to all of the people within earshot online who will listen to me. We don't need those leaders anymore because we can all talk to each other. It's a blessing and it's a curse. We don't even need the economy anymore. But we live in an age, what they're calling, of hyper-abundance, where calories to survive are cheaper than they've ever been before. You might say it's not good food. Yeah, of course it's not. And of course it's really expensive to buy like decent organic things, but the point is that calories are cheaper than they've ever been. The cost of survival is lower than it has ever been. It's a blessing and a curse. But all of it means, when you put all of it together, it means that we're living in a world that is becoming highly individualized and less dependent on anything external, any bigger story, anything outside of ourselves. We are our own gods. We've made it, friends. We're here. Doesn't it feel good? So how does the gospel free us from these chains? What does any of this have to do with spiritual disciplines? Or the series that we're in? It's time to move from survival to service. See, connection to a bigger story, to the bigger story, creates community and actually deepens our humanity. I'm going to show you today how it's more human to serve than it is just to survive. I'm going to show us today how our connection and being connected to one another, the juice is actually worth the squeeze. How we're going to become better people, how we're going to become more like who Jesus created us to be when we connect to one another rather than living in our little isolated single serve boxes. And we see that when we read that passage from John 13. First thing to notice is that the creator of the world becomes the servant of all. Did you picture that? And did you pick that up there? Can't imagine. Jesus is the Word become flesh. John tells us that. He says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, He was with God in the beginning. That Word became flesh, dwelt among us, literally pitched His tent, moved into the neighborhood, and now not only does He do that, live among us as a man. The first thing you might be surprised about here is that there's a 33-year-old something man here with 12 friends. I was absolutely amazed by that. I'm thinking, I don't have 12 friends. He's got 12 friends. That's huge. And on top of that, He takes off his towel and washes the very dirt that he created off of his friend's feet. He's the creator of the world. Surely he didn't need community. Surely he didn't need friends. Surely Jesus didn't need people to hang around. Surely he was self-sufficient. He was able to do what he needed to do, get to where he needed to get to, achieve his purpose, his goal, without friends, without connection, without community. But Jesus here, the faithful servant who rights the wrongs of Adam, lives faithfully before God to bring people into the throne room with him. He does it with a towel and not with a sword. He even washes the feet of a man who had gone to sabotage him. John even lets us in on that secret, says, oh yeah, Judas had already made that deal with the devil, and yet Jesus is still going to wash his feet. Makes you think to yourself, well, yeah, cool, this is great. I get that, being part of this community would be awesome, but if it's really about community connection, why not just join a group? Why not just join the local club that's doing any form of activity? Maybe we could grow vegetables together. Maybe we could do chess together. Maybe we could go fishing together. Why not just join one of those groups and see all of these things decrease? Why does it have to be this kind of group? Decent question. Except that your life and my life will rise or fall to the level of its highest held value. So whatever the highest value in your life is, the rest of your life will rise or fall to meet it. So if you join the local group, which I encourage every single one of us to do, but you make that your all in all, the everything, then you're going to rise or fall to the level that aims the values and the goals of that group. So if it's to distribute, the love of flowers to the entire region, all right? You could have that ticked off in a couple of years, I reckon, if you worked hard at it. But here Jesus is trying to build a community that is all about connecting heaven to earth. The goal is unity with God. The goal is connecting the human heart with the divine. The goal is overcoming our sin, our flaws, our failures, our shame that chases us everywhere so that we can live into the gospel story that Jesus is creating on the earth. That's a big goal. That is something that we can live for. That is something that Jesus is calling his disciples into. Come out of fishing. I'm going to help you fish for men. Come out of being a tax collector. I'm going to show you how to become a generous person and give your life away. That is what Jesus is doing, and that is what he's inviting you and I into. And we ignore it at our peril, my friends. If you want to live a life that's just all focused on you and what you can get out of it, it's going to be small. It's going to be so small. And yet we've been lied to. We've been lied to when we've said that just looking at my little screen is going to help me become a fully formed human being. And what Jesus invites us to do is something so much more organic, so much more beautiful, so much more dependent. Not on a person, but on God himself. Jesus invites his disciples in and says, man, we're going to flip this around. You think that I'm the leader, or guess what? I'm going to put a towel on and I'm going to be serving you. I'm going to be serving you. We also notice that to survive is human, but to serve is divine. See, we live in a cultural ethic of survival, and it is rightly or wrongly, it is our default mode, right? You and I want to figure out how we can make it to tomorrow. Wake up in the morning and go, okay, I've got to survive today. And we've got to do the right things just to make it through to the next day. And yet Jesus, knowing that he was on the very edge of his own life being given away, chooses to not survive, but instead to serve. So he ignores the survival instinct in order to take up the towel and to serve one another and to create community in this moment. Which is incredible to me. It's an incredible picture here of what you and I could be invited into. I mean, he doesn't just serve, but he does the work of the lowliest servant. Like, it was tradition that slaves do this job. If you were in any community or you're in any home, it was the slave's job to wash the feet. There was the tradition also was that the rabbis didn't wash their own feet, but their own servants washed their feet. So it was the disciples' job, and yet he turns it around. Such humility, such grace, such service. Thirdly, community comes at a cost. You can see the cost here. Jesus washes the feet of Judas. If it was me, I'd be washing all the others and then just not you and go around and wash the rest of them, right? You know, and everyone's going, what's up with him? What's wrong there? He doesn't do that. Peter almost, stereotypically is upset at this. Never, Jesus, you can't do this. Jesus is going, if I don't wash your feet, you don't get washed. We'll talk more about that later. But it comes at a cost. I think this is, this is why we don't do it, right? It's hard. It's hard being around people. It's hard being next to people. It's hard turning up to things that you've said that you're going to turn up to even when you don't want to do it anymore. It's hard when all of those things are in the mix. It's hard when people are infuriating. It's hard. Community comes at a cost, but I tell you, it's worth it because together we become more human. We can't escape it because Jesus was the most divine and the most human that ever was, and yet he does this. It means we can't escape. It's not always fun, but it will help others and ultimately yourself as well. A couple of questions, a scripture, and then we'll be done. I'm new here. How long should I sit? This is my first question. Well, I don't know. How injured are you? Like, how hurt? And I don't mean that it's funny, but it's not. A lot of times we'll have people come and become part of this community who have come out of a whole host range of different situations carrying stuff. And so it depends on the level of what you're carrying as to how long to sit, right? Sometimes we'll have people who've been in ministry who come and become part of this community. And it's like, take as long as you need to take in order to heal, to get whole, to get on a journey of wholeness. And then let's go. Let's go. The mission continues. The journey continues. It's also levels, right? Like, I'm so grateful for CEOs of companies who run coffee, or business professionals, small business leaders who serve on Thursday night food stop. And so, where are the greatest needs right now might be another question. I tell you what, our kids' areas are absolutely going ballistic. Going absolutely nuts. Our generations area, through the Life of Discovery Church, our community area, like DCC, and the house is just about to be finished. Man, we have some huge needs. There are some huge things that we could be doing, and we're kind of bursting at the seams. I'm already tired, stressed, overcommitted. Won't serving make it worse? It might, but it also might focus you and help you to say no to some of those things that are overcommitting and stressing you. You might be able to focus in a little bit and serve in a way that will help you put the rest of it in order. I've heard of and experienced many bad things in churches. Won't this community be the same? Yeah. Next question. Well, we can't all, if we're all not here making a mess of things, then there's no one left, right? We're doing our best. I'm in heaps of debt. Don't have a lot of extra income. Can I still tithe but make ends meet? Yeah, we don't want, if you've got like 10 credit cards and it's just unsecured debt all over the place, then yeah, it might not be the wisest thing, but there's still some steps you can take in the right direction, like managing all of that debt, getting yourself into a place where tithing can become a reality for you. I mean, the reality of debt in our world, if you are the very, very, very few blessed people who are able to have, to own their own home outright, own both their cars, outright and everything else, that's awesome. Be blessed and live in the blessing of that, but debt is going to be a reality for us, yet there is still a way that we can put the kingdom first in our own finances that I would encourage each of us to be able to do. Finally, this church is big and has heaps of resources. Surely it doesn't need my time and money. Yeah, but we want to grow. We're going to rise and fall to our biggest vision, and to see this region reconnected with Jesus, to see every heart found in not just any story, but in Jesus' story, we're going to need every single person, hand to the plow, shoulder on the edge, let's go. We're going to need all of us to be able to reach all of us. It's not just about a few, but it's about all of us. John 13, this passage, this thought ends this way. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I've done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that's what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet. I've set you an example that you should do as I've done for you. Very truly, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you'll be blessed if you do them. Let's stand together. Team, you can come. We're all done. I'm going to pray for us in a minute before we finish today. Jesus is doing a work in our days. I'm tremendously optimistic about what he's doing, what the kingdom's doing, the kingdom ethic of service and of love. I truly think, guys, we can tell a different story. I truly believe that as we engage with a kingdom ethic in our homes, where we serve outside of ourselves, it'll actually bring life and wholeness to what's going on inside of our families. I see as we serve each other, as we wash each other's feet, like get messy with one another, like this is a dirty job. The disciples were absolutely freaked out that Jesus was doing it. But as we do that, it actually creates community where we're going to be willing to pay the cost. And of course, what Jesus is doing here in a way was a metaphor too of the work on the cross that he was about to complete. Peter's saying, never, God, you will never wash my feet. And Jesus said, if I don't wash your feet, you're not clean. You know, Jesus came to do what none of us could do for ourselves. See, the point is you can't wash your own feet. Get rid of all the muck, get rid of all the mess, get rid of all the pain, get rid of all of the destruction that you've stepped in. We can't get rid of that ourselves. The only thing we can do is rely on Jesus, the King of Kings, the Master of all, to wash our feet. Jesus said, you're not going to understand it now, but in a little while you will understand it. As he goes to die on the cross, resurrection comes, he defeats sin, he defeats death, he deals with all of that. But if Jesus hasn't washed your feet, you ain't clean, my friends. And so today, like Simon Peter, Lord, no, never. You're not going to get up and close in my business, shook out all my mess. Jesus says, here I am. I'm here with the towel right now. And it's actually coming with that, common experience of being washed by Jesus. It makes us community. That makes us a family. And so today, Jesus, we thank you for the cleansing work that you've done for us on the cross. We want to thank you, God, that you have engaged with our sin and our shame in such a way as to personally take it off our feet. And so, Jesus, today, I pray that you would continue to form us as a community. Get our feet, our shoes ready and on us to serve. That we might live into a more expansive, bigger vision than the one that we could create for ourselves. So, Jesus, today we give ourselves to you again. Come, Holy Spirit. Fill us afresh. Let's sing together the words of this song.